Kai Voss stepped off the solar shuttle with the same quiet confidence that had carried him through asteroid storms and Martian skirmishes. 10 years in the Andromeda Belt had changed him, hardened his instincts and sharpened his mind. But nothing, not alien dust storms, not faulty terraforming modules, could have prepared him for the odd calm of Earth again. Specifically, the eerily perfect silence of Sector Ranch 9. Nestled just outside the city-state of New Phoenix, Ranch 9 had once belonged to his grandfather, a stubborn frontier tech farmer who believed in land, legacy, and telling the suits to mind their own damn business. The ranch hadn't changed much from what Kai remembered. Long stretches of bio-enhanced pasture, a gravity-deflecting barn, and the unmistakable shimmer of a plasma fence surrounding it all. What had changed was everything beyond the perimeter. Neat. Rows of chrome-domed houses glistened in perfect symmetry. Lawns hummed with tiny pruning drones. Flags bearing the insignia of the Interstellar Homeowners Association fluttered above regulation height poles. Kai felt the weight of their gaze before he saw a single soul. He'd heard rumors about these HOAs, how they'd mutated into para-governmental authorities in Earth's absence of central leadership. But he hadn't expected their reach to stretch all the way out here. As Kai walked up to the old gate panel, the embedded AI flickered to life. "Welcome home, Kai Voss. Security protocols have been reactivated. Defensive perimeter at 87% functionality." He placed his palm on the scanner and watched as the plasma gate dissolved into fine light particles. The air smelled like ozone and freshly oiled servos. Familiar, comforting. He was home. Within the hour, Kai had unpacked the essentials and calibrated the ranch's AI systems. He set his communicator to Do Not Disturb and settled in for what he hoped would be months of silence, solitude, freedom. It lasted 3 hours. The alarm pinged softly, a warm chime that indicated someone had approached the main gate. The display projected a figure in a sharp magenta utility suit and high-collared neck pad, standing with hands on hips like she owned the place. Kai tapped the control panel to initiate voice comms. "Can I help you?" he said flatly. The woman raised a hand as if already dismissing him. "Yes, good afternoon. I'm Varela Crane, president of the Interstellar HOA Chapter 56Z. I'm here to deliver your introductory packet and discuss compliance expectations for the neighborhood." Kai blinked. "This isn't a neighborhood. It's private property. Has been since the Martian diaspora." Yes, all part of the charm," she replied breezily. "But this region was rechartered after the Earth Consolidation Acts. Ranch 9 now falls under the jurisdiction of the HOA. Your plasma gate, for example, is 10 lumens too bright. It disrupts the ambient harmony protocols." Kai stared at the feed. She was serious. "I don't care about your harmony protocols," he replied. "This land's been in my family since before you were probably assigned your first credit chip." Varela's smile froze. "Mr. Voss, if you refuse to cooperate, I'll have to escalate this. You're already in violation of 5 visual regulation codes, 2 zoning laws, and 1 decency clause related to your barn's architectural contour." "I'll make a note of that," Kai said. Then, without another word, he tapped the panel. The plasma gate shimmered back to life, directly in her face. From inside, Kai watched her sputter something and begin shouting into her wrist comm. He leaned back in his grandfather's old chair, let the breeze of recycled air hum through the filters, and smiled. This wasn't just his land. It was a relic of autonomy in a galaxy addicted to control. Let them come. The next morning, the sun crept over the horizon in neat, regulation-approved hues, subtly filtered by the HOA's orbital color correction satellites to match the aesthetic. Code of Sector Ranch 9. Kai had barely finished synthesizing his coffee when the alert tone chimed again. This time louder, sharper. "Proximity alert. Unauthorized personnel detected at main gate," the AI announced, her voice calm but firm. Kai flicked his hand, and the holoscreen bloomed to life in midair. Varela Crane stood at the edge of the property once again, flanked by 2 suited figures who looked like they'd been ripped from a security training sim. Stern expressions, identical uniforms, badge patches emblazoned with the IHOA Enforcement Division seal. One carried a scanner, the other a portable regulation terminal. Behind them hovered a tiny drone marked Compliance Auditor. Kai took a long sip of coffee. Outside, Virella smiled like a viper with a polished badge. "Mr. Voss," she began, raising her voice over the static of the gate. "This is your final courtesy visit. You refused to accept your compliance packet yesterday, so I've brought witnesses from the enforcement board. I highly recommend you open the gate and speak with us before things become official." Kai tapped the communicator again. "You're back early," he said, not bothering to hide the boredom in his tone. "Didn't think paperwork would travel faster than gossip." Virella's jaw clenched, but she kept her composure. "Your ranch violates 31 regional statutes. Non-conforming gate illumination, excessive topographical deviation in the pasture zones, and your barn has not been licensed as a sentient structure, which puts you in violation of Subclause 9C of the Conscious Construction Act." Kai raised an eyebrow. "My barn isn't sentient." "Exactly," she said smugly. "All major structures within HOA territory must pass baseline sentience checks for safety monitoring and ethical compliance." Kai sighed. "Lady, it's a barn. It holds tools, not existential thoughts." She motioned to one of the officers. The man stepped forward and raised the scanner toward the gate. "This is a formal citation scan," he said. "Failure to comply will result in penalties." Kai leaned forward and muttered to the AI. "Activate passive resistance protocol." A low hum rumbled through the ground. The plasma gate shifted its frequency just enough to interfere with the scanner's beam. The enforcement agent frowned and smacked the side of the device. "Mr. Voss," Virella snapped, "if you think you can mock the system and escape consequences, think again. This isn't some forgotten lunar colony. Sector Ranch 9 is a model neighborhood, and I will not have it undermined by rebellious loners playing pioneer." Kai leaned in closer to the camera, his face calm. "You walked onto my land, uninvited, twice. You're not my neighbor. You're not my authority. You're not even welcome." And with that, he shut off the communicator and triggered the gate's optical shield. It shimmered into opacity, blocking their forms entirely. Outside, "Virella lost it. She shut me out," she screamed to the enforcement agents. "He shut the gate in my face again." The officers looked at each other. The older one shrugged. "We'll file a formal escalation, ma'am. We can't override private gates without judicial warrants." "Not yet. Then get one," she barked. "I want him cited, fined, detained, whatever it takes. That man is a walking violation of order." As they stormed off, the compliance auditor drone hovered for a second longer, as if considering its odds against Kai's defense grid. Then it buzzed reluctantly after them. Inside, Kai sat back and watched the replay again, amused. Something about her reaction tickled him, not just her entitlement, but her ignorance. She didn't know the truth. She didn't realize whose name was on the land rights now, and when she found out, he suspected that gate wouldn't be the only thing slamming shut in her face. Kai hadn't planned to spend his return to Earth digging through dusty data cores and half-corrupted legal archives, but here he was, half-buried in a crawlspace beneath the ranch's old server node. The air was thick with the scent of aged circuitry and ozone, and faint light flickered from the antique terminals that still pulsed with faint energy. His grandfather, Reese Voss, had always believed in analog redundancy. "Digital memory fades," the old man used to say. "But real legacies etched in layers." A holodrive clicked into place, and the terminal whirred back to life. Kai waited patiently as the boot sequence scrolled past in green, archaic code. The AI overhead flickered briefly. "Warning, archival data may be degraded," she said. "Would you like me to begin restoration?" "No," Kai said. "Run search query, deed transfer protocols, look for anything tagged with Voss Estate." "And land lease agreements dated prior to 2390. There was a long pause, followed by the satisfying chime of discovery. A single document blinked onto the screen. Kai leaned in, eyes narrowing as he scrolled. The legalese was dense, but the meaning was crystal clear. In 2367, Reese Voss had entered a long-term land lease agreement with the Planetary Zoning Council. Not just for the ranch, but for the entire 100-acre parcel, including a small section directly underneath what was now the Interstellar HOA's administrative headquarters. According to the lease terms, ownership of the land passed down through the Voss bloodline by age, not death. Kai hadn't been aware of the clause. How could he have been? It was buried in pre-consolidation Earth law, practically written in ancient dialect. But the timestamp of the clause was unmistakable. On his 30th birthday 2 weeks ago, Kai became the legal landholder of the ranch and the HOA's central complex. He sat back slowly, a grin spreading across his face. "Oh, Varela," he muttered. "You're standing on my floor." Kai uploaded the scanned deed into a secure node and mirrored the file to a judicial server for verification. It would take 24 hours for confirmation, but the metadata alone was compelling. The coordinates of the IHOA headquarters were embedded in the lease. "Let them through," Kai said, "but route their comms through Filter Protocol 7. I don't want them hijacking my network." The plasma gate peeled back with a shimmer, and the synths marched in with flawless synchronization. "The judgment." Drone hovered slightly ahead, its voice as cold and sterile as deep space. "Kai Voss," it said, "you are under investigation for obstruction of compliance enforcement, failure to register architectural AI, and unauthorized use of private defense systems within a regulated district. Present yourself for questioning." Kai stepped forward, hands raised, but relaxed. He held a small device between two fingers, a hollow core, glowing softly with embedded data. "I expected you sooner," he said, casually tossing the core into the air. The drone caught it mid-hover and immediately began scanning the contents. A thin beam of light projected from its visor, filling the space with legal documentation, notarized timestamps, and geo-coordinates that wrapped like a legal noose around every line of HOA property regulation. "This," Kai continued, "is the original land lease agreement for the entire area you're standing on. Section Alpha through Delta, including coordinates 08 to 37AX, your headquarters. As of 2 weeks ago, all rights reverted to me by inheritance." The ESUs paused, their heads tilted in near-perfect sync, processing, cross-referencing judicial archives, the drone said. After a few tense seconds, its voice modulator clicked. "Verification complete. Ownership confirmed. Landholder status, active. IHOA construction status, non-permitted encroachment." Kai smiled. "So what does that mean for your charges?" The drone hovered, processing new directives. "Charges void. No authority to enforce compliance against primary landholder. Revoking Varela Crane's domain override." From within the ranch house, a soft chime rang through the AI system. "Control link to IHOA central node acquired," the AI said calmly. "Tenant override protocols initiated. Administrative access denied to unauthorized users." Varela's voice suddenly cut in, tinny and desperate, broadcasting through what was once her control channel. "What is happening? I can't access the tower systems. My credentials aren't working. Why are my drones grounded?" Kai tapped his wrist console and opened a comm line. "Good morning, Ms. Crane. Just letting you know that, as your new landlord, I've decided to revoke your building access. You'll need to file a formal request if you want to use the toilets." "You smug bastard," she screeched. "You won't get away with this. I'll have the Central Zoning Committee tear this apart." Kai shrugged. "Please do. I've already sent them the paperwork. In fact, they should be receiving a copy of your unauthorized expansion into historical property zones right about now." The line went dead. The synth cops remained motionless, awaiting further instruction. The drone finally spoke again. "Situation stabilized. Compliance action terminated. Have a productive cycle, Mr. Voss." As they turned and filed out, Kai stood tall at the edge of his porch, arms crossed, eyes fixed on the horizon. For the first time since he'd landed on Earth, the land felt like his again, not just by memory or birthright, but by law. And now, the woman who tried to run him out would be forced to live under his rules. Justice, as it turned out, could be programmed. Word. Of Varela Crane's downfall spread through Sector Ranch 9 like solar flare warnings before a blackout. Within hours of the synth cop's quiet retreat, encrypted messages began filtering into Kai's private inbox, each marked with varying levels of urgency, caution, and hope. The first came from a neighbor 2 plots over, Arlen Dross, a quiet hydroculturist who ran a greenhouse outpost near the ravine. His message was brief. Saw what happened. Been waiting for someone to stand up to her. Let me know if you're planning something bigger. Then came a dozen more. Residents with carefully worded messages, offering support, sharing stories of fines for trivial aesthetic violations or sudden drone inspections after voicing disagreement at community meetings. They spoke of Varella's rise from local organizer to unelected despot, backed by the ever-expanding authority of the interstellar. HOA scrolled through the messages, each one confirming what he already suspected. No one had chosen this rulebook lifestyle. It had crept in through policy loopholes, backdoor data contracts, and fear, enforced not with violence, but by slow erosion of autonomy. And now that foundation had a crack. He stood in the control tower of the ranch, once used to scan weather systems and track drone herds, now repurposed into a command hub. He tapped the console, opening the main schematic of the sector. Dozens of properties lit up, each connected through the HOA's central node. The tower Varela had built, smug and silver, stood like a corrupted root in the middle of the map. He smiled grimly. AI, he said. What systems do I now have access to through the revoked override? The AI responded instantly. Access granted to surveillance nodes, drone traffic regulation, neighborhood enforcement logs, and penalty issuance systems. Shall I initiate full diagnostics? Yes, and flag anything tagged as disproportionate enforcement or repeated violations against the same properties. A flurry of red markers popped onto the map. Dozens of them. Targeted harassment disguised as civic order. Kai leaned in. Compile all this into a packet. Strip names for now. We'll need evidence, not blame. He was interrupted by the soft tone of an incoming call. This time, video. A cautious woman with silver eyes and a cybernetic jaw appeared on the screen. He recognized her from the registry. Mara Chin, a legal scholar turned systems engineer, fined over 40 times for unregistered holographic garden modifications. Kai, she said, we've been trying to organize quietly, but she has eyes in the HOA tower. Every time we meet, we're shut down within the week. You're not shut down anymore, he said. The tower's mine now. She gave a sharp nod, something like hope sparking in her eyes. Then we need to act, not just here, but across other sectors. The HOA is metastasizing. You've got leverage no one else ever had. With access to the drone controls and compliance records, we could prove this whole system's a fraud. Kai paused. The thought of becoming a symbol, a movement, wasn't exactly his style. He liked solitude, clear skies, simple routines, but the gate he'd slammed in Virella's face wasn't just personal anymore. It was the beginning of a reckoning. I'm not looking to become a messiah, he said. We don't need a messiah, Mara replied. Just a landlord who remembers who the land belongs to. That night, Kai initiated the first sector-wide communication blackout for HOA drones. One by one, the enforcer bots powered down, falling still like broken toys. Across the neighborhood, residents stepped outside, blinking at the sudden peace. For the first time in years, the skies above Sector E. Ranch 9 belonged to the people again, and this time the gate wasn't shutting them out, it was holding the system in.